Hi there, it's Hal Feldman, MiamiHal, and this is another episode of the MiamiHal Real Estate Show. I'm pleased to be with you, and both of us raced today to get here. Traffic has returned to, we'll call it normal, so we're just having that Miami flow of life, right?
Yes, we are.
So I am here joined with Shellie Ransom-Jackson. Shellie is with a company that deals with permits and construction all day long. And I'm going to learn about her because actually she was referred to me. I've never really had a long chat with you at all. So we're going to learn about each
Okay.
other, and together we'll share with our audience about permits and what's going on in this county, and maybe a little bit of Broward as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. So Shellie, you're the owner of a company called Benchmark Construction Consulting
And management.
and Management.
Yes.
Tell us about that business.
So we are a construction code consulting firm where we primarily do permit expediting. We also deal with code violations, illegal additions. Um,
Did you say hallelujah? Oh, sorry.
among others.
Okay.
And that's really where we specialize. We also do some construction because I am a general contractor. Have been for
You
20.
dress a lot better than the general contractors I typically see.
I hear that a lot.
You look good.
Thank you. So yeah, after 21 years, actually 22 now, years of being a contractor, I am the first African American female building official in the state.
Oh, wow, that's a great distinction. I didn't know
Yes,
that.
yes,
I
it's
booked the
awesome.
right person by Tenacious.
So I have had the very great fortunate opportunity of running several building departments between Miami-Dade County and Broward County, and then just decided to, you know what, go on my own. And because during that time, just seeing the challenges that my customers were having, and with the specialized expertise that I have, it was just, sort of a natural progression to open Benchmark and really help my customers.
Great. But, you and I from different professions tend to have the same types of customers. People that are looking to buy or sell property in South Florida. And there's a lot of challenges there, and some of them are derived from construction or permitting issues that happen along the way. And
Yeah.
it's not just if you own a house for 5 years and it's what you did or didn't do in the way of permitting, it's the history of that home, what you carry, all the way back from when the first nail went into the first board, right?
That is correct. That is correct. It can be very, very challenging, especially for what real estate investors, because a lot of times you don't know what you're getting, and many investors, have a challenge with looking up liens and determining what's illegal versus legal. So yeah, it's a real challenge in your field.
So one of the things that I've learned over the many years I've been doing this is that for a real estate transaction to close, meaning the actual sale taking place, we don't necessarily have a problem with permits being closed or expired. What we have are liens that may have been generated based on that. So if the city, county, whatever, is in a situation where they have liened some levy of fine against the property, that needs to be cleared up before a closing
Yeah.
because it actually is a cloud on title.
Hmm.
However, if there's something that never got closed, and we're going to talk about Hurricane Andrew quite a lot, I think, over the next couple of minutes. Um, for example, a roof that was put back on after Andrew, and the permit was never closed, that doesn't necessarily stop a closing from happening, but the buyer typically wants to clean up all kinds of mess that might be sitting there in the way of permitting before they take possession. Because once you own it and any problems that go along with it, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So I can certainly give examples, but maybe I'll give the floor to you. Um, what do you see most often in the way of permitting problems around a typical single family home?
It's just as you stated. It's having the expired permits. Um, illegal additions. We see that mostly, the illegal additions, and because that actually is work without a permit. And so the open permits, that's what we see quite a bit, and especially with real estate investors, that's always been a challenge. But the legislature, in their infinite wisdom, in 2019, wrote legislation that addressed that issue of expired permits.
This is really good that you brought this up so early in the conversation because I think in general, if you're just an average homeowner and you're thinking about doing something or you have a problem and the word permit comes out of anybody's mouth, everybody gets, oh my God, this is going to be difficult. And it doesn't necessarily need to be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept behind permitting is not to make it a money-making venture for a village, city, or county. It is simply to make sure that the construction that is done is safe. It's looking for safety in the construction that gets done inside a private residence, correct?
That is correct. Our main focus on the construction regulatory side is life, health, safety, welfare of the general public. That's it. That's why I've sort of coined the term for us as where the police um, and fire are considered first responders. Well, I call us first preventers.
Oh,
because
it's a great term.
Because in actuality, we prevent more people from getting injured or fatalities than they save. Because if the structures are not built properly in terms of homes, then a lot more people would probably have fatalities or injuries. So that's why I say I consider us first preventers, which is extremely important in the whole grand scheme of construction.
Wow, I love that term. Now you're about to talk about 2019 and some changes that happened.
Yes.
But I want to, before we do cart before the horse, let's do the horse.
Okay.
Predominantly, my belief is that when we had such an event as Hurricane Andrew, which was devastating, obviously, and we did not have the technologies and the thought process in place that we have today, recovering from that really was first man that can get stuff done, get it done. And the county and the cities and towns all scrambled to do the best that they could, but there weren't even systems in place in order to have a recovery. They just did what they could. And so a lot of homes did have repairs done, and they attempted to do some level of permitting. And the people that had to go and check on progress of a permit or close out permits just were overwhelmed. It never got done. Or in some cases, it did get done and it wasn't recorded properly. Am I correct?
You are absolutely correct.
Okay. So we are talking about something that happened many, many, many years ago, and still we're recovering from that. Even though the trees have all recovered, the houses have all recovered, the paperwork and the mess that we made of it in the way of recording it is still not correct.
That is correct.
So what should homeowners and home buyers rejoice about this 2019 legislature change that you're talking about? First of all, what is the change? What happened in 2019?
In 2019, the legislature, seeing the challenges with expired permits, and there are two ways a permit can expire. If you will, there are two ways a permit will expire. One is no activity after 6 months, and the other is not getting your CO.
CO standing for?
That's right. CO standing for Certificate of Occupancy,
Okay.
allowing you to occupy, or a Certificate of Completion, showing that the permitted work was completed. So what seeing that it was a challenge, the legislature said, well, expired permits now can be closed by anyone and it doesn't have to be, well, let me rephrase, not anyone. The current owner, even if it's not the original owner who pulled the permit.
Okay. So originally, if you pulled the permit and then you sold the property and the permit was not closed, there was a big problem because nobody in
Correct.
quotations, could close that permit.
Correct.
But the legislature fixed
Fixed
that in
it.
2019 by saying, hey, even if you purchased a house that had an
permit.
expired permit by the prior or even prior owner,
Correct.
it can now be closed. How do they do that?
So that is the expired permit. You can either hire the original contractor, if they're still around.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly, especially from Hurricane Andrew.
Exactly.
Or you can hire a different contractor. And prior to this legislation, if you hired a different contractor, that contractor was actually responsible for the work that the other contractor did. Well, they've made it where you can hire another contractor, and that contractor is held harmless from any work done previously. That's one way. Another way that you can address expired permits is taking it over as an owner builder. And as an owner, especially if it's been substantially complete, you could take over as an owner builder. If there's only a final inspection left, you can get that final inspection. If there are several inspections left, then again, you work through that inspection process. And then the third avenue is if it can be shown that it is substantially complete, then the jurisdiction at their discretion may close the permit themselves without you doing anything.
So in general, we've come up with several ways in which to just clean the slate.
Yes.
But all of that still is predicated on somebody judging that that work was done in a safe manner and that the structure itself does not pose any harm to the people that are living or dwelling there, right?
Yes, that is correct. And typically that's done via an engineer's letter, just attesting to the fact that everything was done according to the code in effect at the time the permit was pulled.
So, for example, there was significant building code changes after Hurricane Andrew, and then again 10 years after that. So I believe that's 1994. There was
Correct.
big changes, the biggest changes. In
Mhm.
2004, there was another round of changes to building code that strengthened everything. So if you had a roof put on in 1994 or even 93 after the hurricane,
Mhm.
and it's now 2021 and you want to close that permit, you don't have to have the roof that you have on now meeting that code. Although roof is a bad example because everything should have been replaced from Hurricane Andrew yet again. But I kind of bring that up, and I'd love for you to kind of walk through the mentality of this.
Mhm.
I recently had a closing, and it turned out that there was a roof permit that was not closed, and it was a roof that was put on shortly after Hurricane Andrew. And the roof had subsequently been re-roofed and had permitting done properly. Yet when we went to look at the permit situation for that home, the buyer said, that permit's still open and I need to have it closed or I'm not going to close. And to me, as a human being, it's like, wait a minute, you're worried about a permit that isn't closed on a roof that has been already replaced, that there's nothing left of the original work to close. So how did the 2019 laws change that might have addressed that? And how do you talk to a buyer who absolutely wants to make sure they have a clean slate when sometimes it doesn't even make sense to go back and open up, we'll call it the proverbial can of worms?
Well, that's a very easy fix.
Okay, good.
Because all we would do is use the permit to close the old permit.
Okay. And that is ultimately what happened here. But we had some, well, let's say we didn't have any cool heads in the transaction, and there was a lot of finger pointing and people being very concerned about doing it right.
Right.
But they were aggressively pointing fingers at other people saying, that has to be done before we can move forward. No, not really. It's a phone call to solve this problem. That's accurate.
It is a phone call, because anytime a component of the structure is permitted subsequent to something else, then you can use that later permit, knowing that it's the code to close the other one. Again, it's at the discretion of the building official. However, the majority of my colleagues sees it just that way.
So I'm going to, again, kind of give you a very open question, and I'd love for you to share with our audience what's really going on here. Again, permitting is supposed to be to make sure that structures that people are around and are in are safe. Yet there really is this tension with people. So I'll give you an example, and I'd love for you to kind of run with it. You're a homeowner, you're thinking about updating your kitchens and your baths, and you're still interviewing prospective contractors to do the work, and obviously you're potentially one of them. How would a homeowner go through that process and think about permits, and how do they go about getting involved with permits and making sure they do it from beginning to end the right way?
Well, the first order of business, and this I tell this to all my clients, whichever contractor you are interviewing, make sure that their license is insured and that it's up to date.
There's an easy way to do that. I'm asking you to spell that out for our audience. How
Yeah,
does
no,
somebody
absolutely.
check on a contractor?
Absolutely. So what they would do is, if it's a state licensed contractor, you go to myfloridalicense.com and you click on verify license, put in their information. It will tell you if their license is active and when it expires. But more importantly, there's a link that tells you if there are any complaints against the license. And you can click on that and check for all complaints. If there are complaints, stay away from them.
That seems to make sense. We all do reviews for products. These are reviews for people's work, and we all know contractors can be difficult.
Yes.
So the first thing is check to make sure the contractor you're working with is licensed and insured. Then what do we do?
And then once they are licensed and insured, then you ask them to get the permit. Now, if a contractor, and this is a beware or a red flag, if a contractor, even if they're licensed and insured, try to tell you, well, no, it'll be cheaper if you get an owner builder permit. Don't do it.
Okay. Why would it be cheaper for?
Because they're charging you to pull the permit, and most contractors will charge you more than what they need to. Right. No, they'll charge you for them pulling the permit. You still have to pay the permit fee. So they may, I've seen a simple permit where a contractor will charge $1,500 to $2,000 just for a fence, and the fence permit fee, which the customer has to exactly. So that. Yeah. So that happens.
Why would a contractor put the onus and try to have the owner pull an owner builder permit? It seems to me like that is onerous right off the bat, right? Why would they want to do that?
One, so they wouldn't have to go down to the building department themselves and pull the permit. Another reason is that it insurance.
Oh, tell me
because
about
because if you have an owner builder permit, that contractor is not using his insurance. So they don't have to there don't want to be any claims because every year you have to say when you're renewing your insurance as a contractor, you have to say what your revenues were. Well, and they use that in terms of your premium calculation.
Things homeowners don't know.
That is correct.
Okay, but you're helping us out with that. And if you're tuned into the show, you're getting some valuable information right now. So we still haven't gotten to the permitting part, but what you're saying is choose a qualified, licensed, and insured contractor and have them pull permits with the local municipality.
That is correct. And negotiate their fee.
Okay. What do we do next?
So next, you, depending on so if you're doing, say, a kitchen, bath renovation, you need to make sure that you engage a design professional, architect, engineer, to get you construction documents. If it's minor stuff, you as a homeowner can technically draw it yourself. And it's your home, you can draw it yourself if you know what you're doing.
Okay.
Um,
Typically, the municipality is not looking for where every screw is going to be screwed in or anything. For example, I recently paid attention to this. On a bathroom, you have to have clearance on either side of the toilet
Yes.
for a certain amount of inches
Mhm.
so that people can get in and out of the toilet easily.
That is correct.
And so as long as you draw the vanity is going to stop here and the shower is going to start there and the toilet's in the middle, as long as that measurement is okay, then you'll typically
Yes.
get a rubber stamp to get that permit.
Typically,
plumbing.
of course, making sure that where it becomes more of a challenge is electrical, because of course in your bathroom and your kitchen, you have to have GFI circuits. It can't just be a regular outlet anywhere near water. So if you have that general knowledge, then yes, you're correct. You can just, draw, but you need to know enough of the code, which can be found in floridabuilding.org. You can look at the Florida Building Code yourself, and get the measurements that you need that are code compliant. And that's really it. So you can either do the drawing yourself if it's minor. If it's a little bit more engaged or complicated,
Engineer.
yes, you get your architect or your engineer to draw it, give you a set sign and seal document. And in the Florida Building Code, it actually allows, and I'm trying to remember the correct terminology, the general contractor can actually do the drawing for a single family residence.
Okay, this is good to know. So now we're at the point where we actually go and apply for the permits,
Yes.
and the municipality will do what at that point?
At that point, they're going to review. You submit your permit application, your plans. It goes through the review process, and so the plan reviewers are just looking for code compliance. Once code is complied with, the good thing is single family residents don't have to go through fire. They just need to go through the regular building department sections. And once that happens, if everything's good in compliance, you're approved, pay your permit fee. Oh, let me back up. When you submit your permit application and your plans, you have to pay an upfront fee.
Okay. The upfront fee is what?
The upfront fee, it varies by municipality because everybody has their own fee schedule, but the upfront fee, it covers the plan review.
Okay.
So that cost will cover the plan review, and typically it's credited at the end from the permit, from the entire permit fee. Okay. So what you will typically end up paying at the end is just for the rest of the payments, the remaining balance, and that remaining balance is to typically cover the first inspection and one follow-up, typically.
Got it. So now you have permits, the work starts, and as a homeowner, do I have any responsibility while the process is happening?
Yes, it's the homeowner's responsibility to make sure that their contractor's calling the inspections. And that is how we end up with expired permits, is because the contractor don't call inspections, they let the permit expire. The other thing is, and I always advise this to homeowners, if you're going to pay a deposit, make it a reasonable amount. If they're asking for 50%, no.
Wow.
No,
Okay.
I always say don't pay over 25% as a deposit, because if a contractor cannot afford to at least have a line of credit or buy some of the materials
with that 25%,
with that 25%,
probably not a good contractor.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
that's contrary to what I heard. So 25% would be your maximum that you would pay a contractor up front. And then I know we're getting toward the end of our time and the end of the story as well. So now the work is completed. You're saying it's the homeowner's responsibility to make sure that the inspectors are called for interim inspections while
Correct.
the work's happening. How do we close everything out?
The contractor has to call for a final inspection. So if you're dealing with building, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, everyone has to come out, and you have to make sure they call for final inspection. That final inspection then closes out the permit. Then you may be issued a certificate of completion if it's just systems, because you're already occupying the
Right.
building. But if it's a home that you've not occupied, that you've renovated, then you would apply for a certificate of occupancy,
allowing you to
to occupy the structure.
Got it. And so it just occurred to me, they always say, listen, when we're all finished, the contractor says, when we're all finished, then you'll pay me the other 25% or 50% or whatever it is. And I realize now I'm going to write into any contract I sign upon proof that the permits are closed.
That is
That
correct.
puts the onus on them to close everything out.
That is correct. You never always, when you structure contracts for construction, you always construct them with milestones, and you pay via milestones. And that final payment, which typically in typical construction, 10% is usually held as retainage. So you keep that final 10, 20%. When you give me a CO, you get your money.
Wow. Okay. That alone was worth the price of admission. We're running short on time, but I have to tell you, you have been a wealth of knowledge. I know our audience is going to have questions. And would you come back another time for me?
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's wrap up with this. You've been on both sides of the equation. You are now a contractor in a consulting firm.
Yes.
And you have been a building official. What role did you play as a building official?
I was
maybe roles.
Well, I've been I was the development services director for Miami Gardens for 7 years, and in that role, I was not only the building official issuing permits, but I also was in charge of planning and zoning, engineering, and code enforcement. So I have the knowledge of construction from what I consider cradle to grave. Cradle being zoning, because
Right.
that's where you have to start, and
Right.
grave being code enforcement, which transitions into to maintenance.
Code enforcement be great. That sounds a little heavy-handed. It's wonderful. Before we sign off, I am going to give you an opportunity to talk about your business and how people can get in touch with you. Maybe a website and a phone number or something. So right out there, talk to the audience and tell them who you are and how to get in
All
touch
right.
if they have questions or want to
Yes.
do some work with you.
Absolutely. So Shellie Ransom-Jackson and Benchmark Construction Consulting and Management LLC. I am local here in Miami, but I also have an office in Jacksonville and West Palm Beach. We operate throughout the state, and website www.benchmarkccm.net. And telephone number is 305-733-2752. And we do all types of consulting. We primarily on the construction side, we'll do residential, but only unoccupied residences.
Oh, okay.
And we also do commercial.
Wonderful. Shellie, thank you for being here. To my audience, thank you for listening. If you have questions, please type them into the various social media platforms that we're on right now. We on demand will take a look at those questions, try to get them answered. And I'm going to have Shellie back because she's been awesome. We've got so much more to ask about this permitting process and how to stay clean and have a great life in real estate. Until next week, I am here to help you with your real estate dreams. Shellie's here to answer all kinds of questions about permitting and construction. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. Thank you for having me.